Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Thanks for coming. We have a very small, intimate groups, and I hope because of the size of the group, we can ask a lot of good questions. Today, we are very lucky to have two experts in the field of titles. Title is very important in a real estate transaction. You don't want somebody to come back and sue you because they might have put a lien on your house. So we want to have a good, clear titles before we finish the transactions. And as I said, the way they do it is like a radio talk show host. So they will interact with each other. And then Yolanda was telling me, if you got questions in between, since our group is small enough, feel free to raise your hand and they will handle their questions. Okay. So before I begin, let me give you a little bit bio on the two great speakers. Angie Tang, First American Title. As Senior Vice President of Sales at First American Title, Angie Tang brings over 2 decades of experience and a unique skills set to the real estate industry. A San Gabriel Valley native, fluent in, I wish I would like that, English, Spanish. I did not know you speak Spanish. ¿Cómo estás, señorita? And Chinese. Angie began working in real estate at the age of 16. I was still doing dishes at home. After earning her degree in marketing and sales management from USC, she gained hands-on experience in escrow and real estate before transitioning into title. So she got a lot of experience in the various fields, so she understands real estate really well also. Her well-rounded background, focus, and commitment to service have earned her top industry honors, including the top 5% nationwide and President Club Bronze Award. Let her expertise deliver the assurance you need in title insurance. So that's a little bit humble description of one of our speakers, Angie. Okay, I'll continue with Yolanda so I don't bore you in between and interrupt during the session. Yolanda Martinez-Arenas, WFG National Title. Yolanda began her real estate career in 1982.
I was 5 years old, everybody.
Yeah,
Disclosure, 5 years old.
I was just born.
Age of my daughter.
Quickly becoming a top producing agent before moving into title insurance in 1986, so 4 years later. With nearly 4 decades, I don't know if I should disclose that. 4 decades, she still looked like 20.
Yes.
With nearly 4 decades experience across Los Angeles and surrounding counties, she brings deep industry knowledge and market insight to every transaction. Since 2012, Yolanda has served as Vice President of Sales for the San Gabriel Valley at WFG National Title, earning multiple awards for both production and service. She remained dedicated to supervising real estate professionals and helping them succeed. So this is the bio on our two wonderful speakers. Without further ado, let's give a warm hand of welcome to our good speakers. The floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming and joining us. I wanted to thank my coworker, Rick. He's from our 1031 exchange from First American, so he was helping me hand out the folder. So if you haven't had a folder, please raise your hand and he'll pass one out to you. So I'm Angie, First American. So today we're going to talk a little bit about fraud and how it affects your transactions. So I don't know if Yolanda you want me to start first, or what do you want to talk about?
Yes, so we're excited, and I'm so honored to do this class today with Angie. And unfortunately, in our industry, there is a lot of fraud,
Yeah.
a lot. And I think talking to your coworkers or somebody, that I don't think there's not anyone who has not been connected or touched and experienced fraud. So we're real excited, and Angie and I, we've spoken. We're going to kind of coordinate this class and do it together, and we welcome questions as we have the topics. So please feel free to ask whatever questions, and we will be more than happy to answer. So we're excited today. So Angie's going to start with the topic, and then I'm going to jump in and back and forth. And again, please feel free to ask questions.
So why don't we open up to my first case, not my first case, but the first case I'm going to talk about today, which is on power of attorneys. So who has had a power of attorney that they had to work with on a transaction so far? Anybody had to deal with a power of attorney? Esther, anybody else? Good. Okay. So power of attorneys is a very effective deed that can be recorded, not recorded, but can be used to transfer a property. If you think about it this way, it's a very powerful deed because it's just one deed that can relay the interest of a property to another individual. So when you're thinking of power of attorney, it's one signature, one document. So that's why it's a very powerful deed, and that's why it can be misused very regularly. There are different types of power of attorneys that you can use. There's special, durable, regular attorney power of attorney. So there's different ones that can be used for each property. For this case, I was working on a transaction. There was a power of attorney that was being used, and the longtime boyfriend was trying to sell this woman's, let's just call her Helen, Helen's property. They've been together for a very long time. Helen now has a case of dementia and Alzheimer's, like a mixture of all things, where she's needs a lot of attention, and she needs to be put with a not in a nursing home, but it's gone so far where she had a nurse at home, and now she needed to be, I guess they needed to have like a 24-hour nurse. And so the husband was trying to sell this property using a power of attorney. So when they came to the realtor did their due diligence. They sent it over to title to have a preliminary title done so that they could see how the history of the ownership took place. They find out that the boyfriend was trying to sell the house. We find out that the owner is not the brother, the boyfriend, but her name is Helen, so it was Helen's own. She owned her own property, and there's no trust, there's no nothing saying that the boyfriend can sell with the house except for this power of attorney. So we started looking into it, and we find out that there are heirs that could possibly take ownership of this property that can help her. She's got one sister and she's got one father. And so we reached out to them and asked them, hey, is this okay for this boyfriend? Do you know this boyfriend to sell this property? The father said, yeah, I'm okay with it. But the sister said, no, I don't like the boyfriend. I think there's something wrong with the boyfriend. I don't trust the boyfriend. And then we started looking at the power of attorney, and we asked for some doctor's notes to see when she signed this power of attorney, if the dates were aligned. And we found out that the date that the power of attorney was signed was when she already had some illness. So we don't know if she was coherent of sound mind when she signed that power of attorney. So we said, okay, well, we either have to go through the court system, or if the heirs, the father and the sister, can sign off on it with a letter saying we're okay, we release all this to the boyfriend to be able to sell it for Helen. So ultimately they had to go to court. They have to go through like the court process. It's kind of like a probate where the judge awards who can actually sell the property. So ultimately it took about a year through the court system, because that takes a lot of time and a lot of money to go through. And we now have the sister have authority to sell the house and not the boyfriend. So that was a very close call, because we were trying to push it through and we were going to move on with it. But now with the sister saying no, we ended up closing it the right way. So this is one way a power of attorney can be used, not in a right manner.
That is correct. Exactly what Angie said. A power of attorney is a very important document, and it cannot be taken lightly. And the power of attorney, the reason why a lot of things arise is because the title company, when brought to our attention, we have to ask the questions. Why are they using a power of attorney? Why isn't the homeowner, why isn't the seller signing themselves? Now, sometimes it's because they're out of the country. One of the sellers is on a work out of the country, and so he cannot sign the grant deed in a sales transaction. So in that particular case, okay, he leaves a power of attorney, to his wife or his child to sign on his behalf. Like Angie mentioned, there are different power of attorneys. There's specific, and if it's a sales transaction, which most of the time that's when the title companies get involved in, it's got to be a specific power of attorney, and it's got to mention that subject property. Okay, it cannot be a general, makes no mention of the properties, makes no mention of the actual sales transaction. So a title company cannot take that. And there's also other power of attorneys that are very much misunderstood and are sent to the title company. There's financial power of attorney, and if it does not make reference of the sale of that particular property, we cannot use it. I also once had a transaction when an agent listed it, and the power of attorney was a health power of attorney. A health power of attorney has nothing to do with the sale of a transaction, the power to sell a property. Okay, so I mean, I understand a power of attorney on health. You get that when your parents are getting elderly, maybe the health is starting to diminish. You know, unfortunately, maybe they were diagnosed with a terrible disease or cancer. And so then it makes sense you would give a power of attorney for your decisions in your health to your loved one, whether it's your spouse or your children. That's one thing. But another thing is to sell, a title company cannot go off of a health power of attorney. So the title company will ask questions and we'll have to review and make sure it's specific, okay? And like Angie mentioned, and this is key, again, asking questions, why did they give the power of attorney, to who, why? But mainly is that person, was that person competent? And Angie mentioned that in her scenario. Was that person competent? Like say they're giving a specific and maybe in there to sell that subject property. Was that person in the right frame of mind? Was that person under duress and stressed? That's another key question. So all these factors play, because let me tell you, and I know Angie's seen and heard a lot, what happens with the title companies, if we just go and take it as face value, we do not do our homework and ask questions, then what happens is we close the transaction, and you better believe we're going to get a claim from a family member, an heir, saying, no, that person wasn't competent. No, this was supposed to be for me, or that was not the intention, and that person was under stress. And we hear it all, and we are seeing the claims. So yes, the claims, the increase on power of attorney claims are on the rise. So if ever you're taking a listing, okay, and in the conversation with the sellers, there's a power of attorney, please contact your title rep and ask upfront before you get into into that transaction, or before you think, oh, I'm going to submit the POA, or when we think that the seller is going to sign the grant deed and we get somebody else, you know. And so please forward. We're here for you, and we'll be more than happy to review the power of attorney and submit it to our underwriters or to the title officer. So everything that Angie said, right on.
So one quick thing, when you're doing a listing presentation and they're using a power of attorney, but the property is in a trust, you really need to get us to look at it, because 99% of trusts do not allow for a power of attorney to be used. That in mind. The other thing is, when I talked about this last scenario of this power of attorney being used and we were able to mitigate that selling from the boyfriend, on the flip side, there was another one. If you listen to our podcast called First on Fraud from First American, it's called First on Fraud. There's another story that's being depicted in there in the podcast about a person in jail who, believe it or not, he was the victim of fraud. His home got sold by his girlfriend using a power of attorney. And he did sign the power of attorney initially, but while he was in jail, he rescinded it and wanted to get a wanted to record a document saying that he didn't want the girlfriend to use the power of attorney. But before it got done, and since he was in jail, he wasn't able to do it. And then it ended up becoming a claim. So unfortunately, he lost his house because when he got out of jail, there was new people living in the house, and he found out that it had been sold underneath him by his girlfriend. And of course, the girlfriend vanished. So things like this happen, even though prisoners are not, they've convicted, they still become part of
They still
fraud.
become victims
They get-
themselves.
They still become a victim themselves.
Mhm.
So that's power of attorney is a very powerful document. So whenever you're dealing with a listing, whether it be in a trust or a power of attorney, make sure you reach out to us, because trust, there's a lot of issues with trust too. When you're looking at trust, you want to make sure if the person has passed away, you want to make sure you're selling it to the successor trustee, or the successor of trustee can be the sellers. So there's a lot of things that title has to look at to make sure that we're going to be selling this property correctly to the right people from the right people. That way there aren't any fraudulent activity being done by certain heirs that should have, had some sort of proceeds from the sale. Because if the trust mentions certain people are supposed to be benefiting from the sale of that transaction, and they don't get their proceeds, and it was in the trust, that also becomes a claim. And anybody involved in a transaction that has to do with fraud or seller impersonation, everybody in the transaction gets pulled into court. Not just title, not just escrow, everybody. That means all the realtors as well.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. The latest trend, and there's always trends, especially in our industry or with the fraud. The latest trend right now is they're not just going after the title company, they're going after escrow, the lender, the agents, the broker. So you have to really be careful. I used to hear, and I'm sure Angie's heard this too, we've been in the business a long time, as a title rep, my agents would tell me, oh, we're going to do this, but it's okay. I tell my clients, don't worry, you got title insurance. They'll cover you. They'll take care of you. So in other words, if something comes up, don't worry, title will roll over and pay. And, we do our job. But nowadays, these buyers or sellers or clients are more sophisticated and more sue happy. And guess what? They're not just going after the title company, they're going after all of us. But I like what Angie brought up, a really good topic, trust. Trust is the next red flag and hot topic, unfortunately. And trust, obviously, when you hear trust, there's most of the time there's senior citizens, okay? So when you are working on a listing and it is vested in a trust, immediately ask for a copy. Don't give us the original. We don't want the original, folks, okay? But get us a copy of that trust. It is so important because you need to see, especially if the successor trustee, the owner, has passed away. So now you are working with the successor trustee or successor trustees if there's multiple. So you need to know who you're working with as far as listing, signing the listing agreement, the offer, and ultimately the grant deed. So it's so important that you get that copy of the trust immediately up front from the family, and then you forward a copy to the title company for review. And for many reasons, I'll tell you a couple of them. We had one file. It was in a trust. The agent was so excited, got the listing. Okay, sold it right away, getting ready to close escrow. And where's the trust? No trust, no trust. Finally, like close to closing, they gave us a copy of the trust. And guess what? There was a life estate. So it was mom and dad's house, 3 children. They were all the beneficiaries. One of the siblings was the successor trustee, had the power to sign, but there was a life estate. There was a life estate on one of the children that they get to live there. So when we got a copy of it, did we ask, okay, is this one sibling deceased? No, he still lives in the property. Guess what? You can't sell the property until he gets to still live in the property. And so that is why it's so important that we get a copy of the trust and not even the agent reviewed or looked. And I get it. We're not attorneys. But we need to review, look, ask questions, and get it to the title company as soon as possible to review. Had this been sent to us from the beginning, we would have not have ran into this problem of delay of close. Now, in all good and fairness, it was salvageable. So the two other siblings offered extra money and relocated the sibling who was in there, and he signed off. So it was all done legally, but it was a slight little snag and delay. But do you see that worked out well? You could see how that could have gone really bad and maybe even the transaction fall apart altogether. So you have to be careful with that. Another thing is, unfortunately, when it comes to all the fraud that's going on, unfortunately, a lot of it is between family, and it's really sad. And we see the ugly side when it comes to the family feuding, especially when mom and dad dies and the kids or grandchildren are feuding over the property. And that's where a lot of the claims and lawsuits come. And so when we as a title company ask for documentation, we're not trying to kill the deal. We want to close. We don't get paid until it closes. But we're just trying to do our job, and that's to ensure the transaction. We're trying to protect the sellers, protect the new buyer, protect escrow agents, everybody. So we're just doing our job. So we had another file recently where this is a red flag. It was in a trust, but that trust changed 3 times real fast. When a trust changes 3 times real fast, there's a problem, folks. And the mother was still alive, but she was elderly, not competent. Well, you know, every child and grandchild was convincing her to sign and change. And sure enough, when we asked questions and doctor's letter and all this and that, we did find out that there was duress and fraud. And it was sad because it was within the family. So again, another red flag. So please get your trust to your title rep or title company ASAP. Did you want to add any?
Yeah, I was going to talk about elderlies.
Okay, now let's.
So
Now we're
so
going
gonna
into elderly.
transition to
Now
the
we're
elderly side.
Any questions so far, though? Any questions? Oh, we're scaring you guys so much. You don't want to. Okay. Oh,
Quietness.
I don't want to do any duress. Okay. Okay. So now Angie's
Okay.
going to, since we talked
So-
seniors and trust, Angie's going to start the elderly talk.
So one thing that's being listed most frequently right now are 30+ years home ownership, right? Which means they're mostly the elderly people that are now empty nesters, right? Because they're living in this 3-bedroom, 3-bath house. It's just him and the wife, and you know, they're getting older, and these are the homes that are being targeted, right, for listings as well as fraud, unfortunately. So when it comes to a person owning the home for a really long time, they've become an elderly person, and they're usually the fraudsters focus on them because it's so easy to manipulate. There's now, with the use of AI, which we can talk about AI a little bit more in towards the end. But there's so many different ways. So unfortunately, from there, they moved usually to a nursing home. And there's a case that I worked on where this grandmother was in the nursing home, and I think she was either not very cognizant of what was happening or what she was signing. She actually signed off on a document giving her nurse the power of attorney to sell her home. So when we got this case, I actually drove to the nursing facility to meet this old lady to see if this was really what she wanted to do. And when I went, I found out that she was not coherent enough when she signed that document, talked to the doctors. And so we didn't pass on that transaction. So elderly fraud is high on the radar only because, one, they have to sell, they have to downsize. Secondly, they may not be of the right mindset to actually be able to sell, and they don't know what they're signing, and they're just signing everything. And a lot of times they're being, given a lot of different types of drugs to kind of sedate them or make them feel better. And so they're not very cognizant of what they're signing. So that's one of the cases that I had with elderly fraud.
Oh, yes. So obviously elders are a high target for fraud. And just like Angie said, you know, whether their health is deteriorating or they're
Mhm.
already Alzheimer's or dementia has kicked in. So th- we we tend to ask more questions and really check to make sure that everything is fine. But I'll share a story. It's with XYZ title company, but it's I know nobody would want to experience this. And the property was in a trust, elderly person, and the mother passed away, and this is in a very nice area, and the home was worth million plus, uh, probably a lot more than that, 1.6 million or something, 1.8 million. And the property was run down because this woman was elderly. She couldn't put money into it. So when she passed away, her son, who was in like about 63, inherited the property. Plus, he inherited over $1 million in the bank. And so he moved in. The house did look run down and distressed. And this is the sad thing, is that there are professionals that are looking for these targets, these people, these homes. And so there was a group of people, they befriended the son who inherited, and they realized, they knew his mom had passed away. They knew that he inherited this house that's free and clear. And they first started, how they got through to him is, oh, I'm a kind of like a handyman. I'm gonna like help, you know, cut the trees. I'm gonna paint. I'm gonna fix this. Eventually, as much as, believe it or not, they moved in with him. And then they continued the friendship and they started spending all that money. Okay. And it's really sad because they went through all the money. So then they were trying to sell the property. The property's free and clear. So they were gathering up getting the phony, becoming his ID and becoming him. And right when this was about to get ready to sell and close, he dies. The son dies. Okay. And he dies in the house. And they hid. This is a true story, folks. I am not making this story up. They hid his body in the house and continued to live and his identity and get his money and get his whatever pension or social security. I mean, this is really sad. And this was, they were going to sell it. The neighbors were the ones that realized, like, hey, they even asked the friends, the so-called friends, where's such and such? We haven't seen. Oh, he went to go visit a family member. Meanwhile, they're selling the property in a name. Well, their cover was blown. They were caught and they went to jail. But the sad thing is that this is happening more and more to seniors, and the sad thing, these fraudsters, they have access to all this public information. They know when you're a senior. Actually, you know, when somebody dies and they file probate or these affidavits of death, they can get access to that information at the recorder's office. And so that's what these fraudsters, they're looking for that. Okay. And so they're getting that information, and then they know who to target and to sell the property fast or spend the money. And it's really sad. But this is what we're dealing with on almost a daily basis now.
Practically.
You know,
Always something.
it's funny. I know you started a long time ago, and I started title in the 80s. Before title companies, we just had to check for recorded liens and mechanics liens and notices of substandards and how many deeds of trust and is the seller the real seller. It was kind of simpler back then.
Yeah.
Now we became that. We continue to do our job as a title company and search, but we almost have to become a police, a detective, FBI investigator. So our job and our role is so much more than what it used to be back in the 80s and 90s. And that's the ironic thing. of what our industry has become.
So we actually, First American was part of a sting operation for notaries that were fraudulent. So they went to one of our escrow divisions, and they knew that the fraudster was there trying to notarize some documents and stuff. And so I guess the FBI was watching them for a long time. Of course, I'm not privy to all the details, but I know that this happened because one of our managers was part of this sting operation. So they catch the notary guy and they started asking him questions. They search his car. He opens the trunk and he had, I don't know, 24 different notary stamps of all from all over the place to do these notaries. So there's another case that I know that there's a huge claim on. It's not through First American, it's through a different company, but they're having a huge claim because I guess there's a bunch of individuals or a group of individuals that were trying to sell property, saying that they're getting an embassy stamp from a different country, using that embassy stamp as a way to sell somebody else's property. So, and these embassy stamps were all fake. And nobody went to triple check it, double check it, nothing. They weren't checking if these stamps were valid or not because it was out of country. And finally, one day they said, wow, we've done so many of these transactions, kind of looking a little fishy. So they called that country's embassy and asked them to see the notary stamp, and it was off. It wasn't the right notary stamp, so, or embassy stamp. So that's also been happening a lot. So the fraudsters are getting much more, I don't know what the word is. I don't know. Sophisticated and clever at finding different ways, because real estate is what? It's a very expensive property. It's not a pair of shoes. It's usually $1 million and up in California. So it's easy for them to target homes because it's such a high value. And once they're gone with the money, they're gone with the money. Unfortunately for them, there's escrow and us and lenders that we have to verify and check things out. So not only are they doing fraudulent notaries, they're doing fraudulent IDs. So at times when we have to ask for, IDs at escrow, they'll ask for, especially if they're foreigners, they'll ask for like, a driver's license, or they'll ask for a passport. Now, if you ever see a passport and a driver's license with the same picture, that's going to be a red flag.
Yeah.
Why? When you take your driver's license, it's not the same picture that should be
Yeah.
with the passport.
Be at the DMV, you should be taking a picture.
DMV pictures never look good.
Yeah.
So when you're asking for, identification, you have to look out for these things. And now with the play of AI, there's been so many fraudulent IDs. Like, it's crazy. They even have the hologram, and you could buy it for a few $100, and it'll look and feel like just like a real driver's license.
As a matter of fact, my title officers say that the fraudulent passports and IDs even look better than the originals.
yeah.
That's how sophisticated and no, I kid you not. And like Angie said,
It's so true.
there's like machines, like they print up these things and like it's really scary. And they're so sophisticated, and it's this new these fraudsters, they're good. And it's really hard to detect. And so you always have to be alert and checking and questioning. And so again, we never want to offend any, like the escrow company or the agents, or no, we're just doing our job because of what is going on. And it's so crazy.
There's another story I'd like to share with you. I think this was about a month ago. It was actually, well, he made it seem like he was a client of mine, but I don't think I've worked with him before, but he seemed to know a lot about me. And so he said that he's worked with me on different transactions in the, decades that I've been in the industry. And I couldn't remember who he was, but he was very ultra friendly. And I said, okay, well, he goes, well, I have a deal for you. I'm like, okay, let's go over it. So I opened up the prelim and everything else. And so ultimately I found out that he was trying to buy this property. He was a realtor trying to buy this property from this girl he didn't tell me, but I think they were dating. And unfortunately, she was a new widower. Her husband had just passed, and the property now belonged to her. And this guy, he comes in and whatever he does, swoons her to have her sell the property to him for extremely undervalue. So I think the property was worth $1 million. He was trying to buy it for $500,000. And when it passed through us, we didn't feel that it was an ethical, moral transaction because we felt that she was being taken advantage of because of her situation. And her kids, we got on the phone with the kids, with everybody, and explained to them, do you know what is happening to your mom? Do you understand that she's trying to sell this property that's worth $1 million and they're selling it for 500? This is going to be probably something that you guys will inherit after, if later on. Are you sure you're okay with this? And the kids even said, well, we've already told our mom, but she wants to sell it. She wants to sell it. There's nothing we can do. Well, ultimately, First American made that decision not to sell it because we felt that she was not in the right mind because she's a new widower and he came out of nowhere and wanting to buy the house for 500. And then first he said it was going to be like 600 or so. And then he comes back and he says, oh, the lender's not approving it. He's not giving me enough money. So I need to lower the purchase price for 500. So can you guys insure? And we said, we're going to decline this. We don't feel like this is the right thing for us to do. I even got on the call with the wife and the wife says, no, I want to sell. I want to sell. I'm like, when you're a new widower and you're being swept off your feet, something just doesn't feel right for us to be able to insure something like this. And so we ultimately didn't insure it. I don't know. I'm sure he went elsewhere. I don't know if he got it sold or not, but it just, sometimes if it's doesn't feel right, it just doesn't feel right. Like you can't stomach it. Like if you close that transaction, what if it comes back later on and she comes back and she sues and she says, I wasn't of right mind, I wasn't right
Be
down.
duress or
Duress.
not under the right frame of
So
mind.
these are the things that we have to do too. Yes, we would love to close a transaction, but we want to close it the right way, the correct way, and hope, the things we do are done right so that we make the path right for the new homeowners.
And not just like the elderly, but people who are in these really sad
Yeah.
situations, and that's who are being targeted and taken advantage. But I liked something that you brought up, and we'll kind of jump into that about the notary and signing. So another sign of fraud or red flag that the title companies have to be alert and escrow is when the seller, we never see the sellers. It's like this invisible person. And all they like to do is communicate through text and email. And when it comes to signing the grant deed, they absolutely do not want to go into escrow. They want their own notary. And so all those are red flags. And that brings me to my next story. So unfortunately, it was my transaction. I have this awesome working relationship with this wonderful, wonderful escrow company and lender. And I got a lot of refis from this lender and, with this escrow company, great working relationship, professional. This lender comes across an investor that had this opportunity to buy a home cheap, not cheap, but a little under. So he's like, okay, I want to get a loan and da, da, da. And he goes, okay, yeah, I could do the loan and all this and that. And so he goes, oh, and I know the escrow and title. So opened up the sale with escrow and WFG. And as it turns out, the house was vacant. One red flag. Property was free and clear. Two red flags. Okay. And it was off market. Okay, so it was not in the MLS, it was off market. So no agents were involved. It was kind of like a for sale by owner. When this all went south, and I'll tell you, so escrow, as we found out, the investor bought it, we insured it, and we found out that escrow didn't notarize the documents. The deed was notarized in San Diego by a notary that we are not familiar with. And how it happened was the investor was all happy after the close of escrow and he's fixing up the house. And this old man comes and says, hey, what are you doing? He goes, I'm fixing up the house. He goes, that's my house. He goes, no, I bought it 2 weeks ago. He goes, no, I'm the owner and I didn't sell it. So as it all came out, the investor was contacted by phone on this great deal on this home that's free and clear and that was vacant. And as it came out, of course, the story comes out afterwards that the investor buyer never met the seller and that he was told that the keys were on the back mat from the back of the door, at the back door. So he went to the back door, opened up, saw the house, loved it, great price, and it was notarized, the document in San Diego. So we found out that escrow never met the seller. Okay, so we had to buy back the house, give it to the nice old man, pay off the loan, and by the time all this came down, the notary, everybody was long gone, and it was too late, you know. So what to learn, all the red flags, but that person never came in to escrow. Nobody ever met the seller. It was all done by phone and text and email. And notary was not a familiar notary, was not notarized in escrow. Escrow never met the seller. So we were all taken advantage of. We were all fooled. We were all played. And so that's why sometimes title will ask and request, you know, can you, you know, sign it on an approved notary
Approved
or
notaries.
with escrow, you know, it come into escrow because of that situation had so many red flags. And like I said, there were San Diego notary, those people are probably they were in Mexico probably the next day after we closed, you know. So there you go. I mean, that was too many red flags. So
So, it would be a claim.
it was a claim
Yeah.
and we had to buy the house back. Yeah,
Title company.
we had to buy the house back because we insured the investor thinking everything was on the up and up. And so we had to buy the house back. We had to pay off that loan that the investor got. So we paid off the lender, buy the house back. Okay, and
This is
yeah, and we had to give the house back to
back.
no, we had to give the house
Well,
back to the seller.
owner.
Right,
The
to the owner. He wasn't the seller, he was the
Yeah.
owner. You know, and that's what happened. But you could see all the red flags.
This is
and-
why
and
it's
it
really important
happens.
to have title insurance.
Yeah.
Really important to have title insurance. That's another thing too. If you know, some clients don't want to do title insurance or don't want to go through escrow and they just want to sign the deed, record it at the county, that's a big, huge no-no. That's a huge red flag. You don't want to put that risk because they're pretty much, there's no loss mitigation. There's no protection. You're literally just going to sign a deed and get it recorded. I've had that happen before and it clouds the title terribly. And then we have to go and unwind it because there was no title insurance from the previous transaction. And how do you even show proof that that is the right person that's selling the property? How do you even know that? There was a property manager that sold like a 5-unit apartment and he was just a property manager and he sold the 5-unit apartment without the owners knowing. The owners come back and they're the same thing. What are you doing to the property? Why are
Yeah.
you painting it?
Yeah.
Oh, because I bought it. It's mine. And the owner's like, no. And then they try to get the property manager. The property manager took away the money and disappeared already. Gone.
You know, there's a saying, and I tell my agents when they come to me with similar stories or, hey, how about this or that? And I always tell them to tell their clients, if something sounds too good to be true, it's
It is.
usually not true.
Yeah.
Because nobody gives away something like this for free. And especially when, like Angie said, like for sale by owners,
Yeah.
between family members even, or parties, or it's so dangerous. At least with title insurance and escrow, you have that. But even more so, at least with the real estate transaction where there's realtors involved, you guys are our first line of defense. And that's the best way I like to look at it and say, you guys are our first line of defense because you are the ones dealing directly with the seller, the family, the buyers. So you know all the principles. We don't, unless we start digging and have to get involved. But we don't we don't meet the seller or the buyer or the siblings, or if it's in a trust. No. So you are our first line of defense. So if some of the red flags that you might come across is, one, if you never meet the seller and they just want to do business by calling, that's a red flag, or by text and email. If they want to sell, they call you, hey, Lucy, list my property. The house is worth $1 million, and Lucy, they want you to sell it for 700 or 600. That's a red flag. And another red flag is if they don't balk on the commission. Oh, they'll pay you whatever. Oh, you want 10%? I'll give you 10%.
Too good to
If
be
it's too good to be true, question it. And the problem is, like Angie and I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, is they're not just suing the title companies nowadays. They're suing escrow. They're suing the brokers. They're
Everybody.
suing the agents. They are sue happy. They want to get everybody involved. And so that's why you have to be careful. So you are our first line of defense, and you want to, meet the people in person. You want to get documents signed by your notary or the approved notary from the title company or escrow. You want to get them involved because you are our eyes. So you will see the fraud first before, if there's any, before we do.
So I had an agent call me. He goes, Angie, there's this guy who called me out of nowhere. He found me on Yelp or somewhere online, and he wants to sell this vacant piece of land. That is on target right now. It's the hot thing for the fraudsters right now, is vacant land, free and clear. They look it up in the public records, like Yolanda was saying earlier, and they target those pieces of land because nobody's living there. So it's easy. And so when it came down to it, they wanted open escrow. They were rushing everything. When you're rushing everything, it's also a red flag. You don't want to rush it to the point where there's mistakes being done, because it's still it's a transaction that you're transferring real property. The most expensive asset anybody will ever own is real estate. So when you're transferring it in a very, very rushed manner, that's a red flag for title. And then when it's free and clear, it's another red flag. And when it's vacant land, they're all targeting these things. So he calls me up. He goes, Angie, I need to rush this prelim. I need to close it right away. I need to go into escrow. Okay, fine. I'll do my part. We go into escrow. We go into escrow. Escrow says, can you show me, I need your identification. I need something. He goes, oh no, I'm out of the country. I don't have anything. Passport? No, I don't have anything. He refused to give us any identification. Well, then how are we going to identify you? How do we know who you are? Because I say I am. And he started threatening. Then he started trying to say he's going to sue us, and he blew it out of proportion. And ultimately, we declined him, and I think he obviously wasn't able to sell it with us. I don't know if he went elsewhere, but these are things you need to look out for. Just because somebody calls you because they know you're eager to get those listings, you don't just rush and try to close something without doing the proper steps to make sure that that transaction takes place the right way. So then that's why we have our approved notaries. You have to make sure that they are approved through First American. You just can't take any notary from anywhere, because as I told you earlier, we did a sting operation with notaries. So it's very important that we have our approved list. Escrow already knows when you're working with a lot of the escrows around town. You can even double check with us if these escrows are valid escrows, because we can check on our end. I've had clients call me and ask me, hey, do you know ABC escrow? Are they valid? Are they real? Because there's all these fictitious ones that pop up all the time, and they look and feel real, but they may not be a real escrow institution.
I mean,
so-
yeah, I like that. But some notaries, now, not all notaries obviously
Yeah.
are bad. I mean, there's a lot of good notaries, and even the notaries are tricked. And because the ID looks so good.
Mhm.
So I have seen and heard of transactions where even the notary was tricked, and it's sad, and they're a victim as well. But there's also, like Angie mentioned, a lot of notaries that are not, like the one that on my transaction that's probably in Cabo or Cancun right now, so you have to just really be careful and protect yourself. And I like, you also brought up vacant land. Early on in my career, I had an agent that came up to me and said, Yoli, can you help my client? And I go, well, yeah, sure. What happened? What's up? Well, he had a the vacant lot in downtown LA. So this was a long time ago. This was like probably in the late 80s. and he bought it for like 240. So LA, that's a hot area somewhere down there. And so he bought it from the owner, but for sale by owner, no title, no escrow. I'm like, what? No title, no escrow, because it was so cheap. Well, if it was so cheap, it's probably not legit. But anyhow, he gave him the 240 cash or whatever. I'm not sure, cashier's check or whatever. And because it's a vacant lot, nobody lives on there. There's no structure. So it's not something that's going to be brought to your attention. So I think months or a year went by. And then he found out that who he bought it from was not the real owner. And so he just lost out on $240,000. Again, if something sounds too good to be true, it's not. And he rushed. That's another red flag, and no title in escrow. So he really lost out. I mean, good luck. I mean, he can hire a real estate attorney, but now he's going to spend more money. And I know that person is gone. So the chances of finding that person. So, but vacant land right now is, like Angie said, is one of the other top fraudulent case. We're getting so many claims on that because it's the easy go-to, it's fast, it's easy, there's nobody living on there, no structure, and a lot of times you won't get detected until it's way too late. So that's the other, it's kind of funny, we've seen the trends. I think in the 90s or in the 90s, it was the fake deeds of trust or fake reconveyances. And the title companies got hit hard.
It was faxed.
And everything was faxed. And then in 2008 and 9, I'm not sure how many of you were in the business on the short sale, the REO crash in 2008, 9, and 10. But back when in that market, the fraud, the claims was all these those companies that help.
The fake attorneys adding
The attorneys and those
Yeah.
companies that were willing to help you, help save your property. Oh my God, you should see how much fraud on those people assisting, and I can help you get out of the, your foreclosure. Give me 20,000. Oh no, this is true stories.
Yeah.
People were giving homeowners who were in default, were giving 15,000, 20,000 to these people who were assisting loan modification people. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, those
Loan, I was
mods.
like loan mods.
And they had the
And
attorneys too.
attorneys in these offices. Okay. And you know what was so sad? They would take enough. But I kind of scratched my head because one, if the homeowner can come up with 15 or 20,000, and believe me, I heard many of these stories and saw many of these stories. Why weren't you giving that to the lender for one if you were in default? But nevertheless, they were giving to these loan modification companies. They were adding people on title that they didn't even know. They were filing bankruptcy that they didn't even understand. They were putting fake people who were dead or people on title, and then they go to Mexico. So you could see the cloud on title and the messes that it was creating this was the 2008 through 2010, 11 fraud that was going on. So every so often the new trends.
change.
And right now with AI, oh my gosh, between that and the vacant land, I mean, we see these new trends, and it's really sad and unfortunate. Any questions? I know Angie and I gave you a
think-
lot of
I
information.
think we have like one more topic I wanted
Oh,
to
sure,
cover.
go ahead.
So we haven't talked about it yet, but it's been a hot topic, but it's also evolving. And the reason why I say it's evolving because of AI. So wire fraud. Everybody knows about wire fraud. You know that your emails can get circumvented, right? When the email's going through to escrow or to the buyer or to seller, it gets intercepted, and then they take on the role of whoever it is and change the digits on the wire, right? And then we ask for people to do a verbal, right? Call. Well, now with AI, they use your voice and they change up whatever the wire instructions are using your own voice, and it sounds like you. So that's how wire fraud is now evolving. On Fraud through the First American podcast, there's a podcast that's called Unreal Deals AI Deepfakes on Real Estate Fraud. Listen to it because that will tell you how well the fictitious AI voice sounds exactly like it would sound like me talking, but it's not me. It's AI is using my voice to make it sound like me and say things. So now even with wire frauds, and you're going to be using, they can use AI to change the wire fraud, the instructions, the wire instructions. So it's really, really scary. If you guys don't already have a two-factor authentication on your Google or any of your devices, you should add a two-factor authentication on all your systems. Majority of the banks are also doing it. That, you know, when you log into your bank, it says, "Oh, where should I text you?" First American's profile system also has that. I mean, title companies have to evolve
Yeah.
as fast as the fraudsters are evolving. So we now have a two-factor authentication for our site as well. The county has also been trying to evolve. They're a little slower at the at the process, but there's a sign up page through the county of LA where you sign, you fill in the form. I have the website. Do you want me to give it to you guys? That way you can sign up, send it to your clients to have them sign up. Another touch for you guys when you guys are doing marketing. Let me give it to you. Sorry, I was pulling it up earlier when Yolanda was talking. So it's where is it? Okay, it's HTTPS : and then the / assessor.lacounty.gov, and then it's / news, and then it's hyphen information / e-notification. If it's too long, just pull me to the side later on. I'll send it to you, or text me and I'll cut and paste it and I'll text it to you guys. It's a great way to get yourself signed up. I signed up, and get your clients signed up as well. So what the county used to do was just send out a letter stating, "Hey, are you doing refinance? Are you selling your property? Because, you know, there's a new recorded document on your property." But all of this stuff is just about loss mitigation. It's not loss prevention. There's no way to prevent it. So when you're seeing scams on, or your clients are calling you saying, "Hey, should I sign up for this monitoring system? It says that it'll help me with, you know, losing my property and fraud on my property." There's no such thing. There's no loss prevention. The only thing we have is loss mitigation, which means preventive measures, right? So the county used to send out a letter to the homeowners stating, "Hey, a new recorded document is recorded to your property." Now you can get email services through that site I was just telling you about. And now First American is also starting to add into our profile system through our transactions a way for us to send the homeowners an informational letter or email stating, "Hey, did you do this to your property?" Because the more their homeowners are getting information, the easier it is for the loss mitigation process. When something happens that's fraudulent, you want to find out about it right away, not when you have to do a refinance or sell it later on, because by then it's long gone. You may not even know that it's gone. So it's all about loss mitigation. And these are some of the ways that you can prevent from anything happening. Sign up for the website through the LA County. Read all your mail that you're getting, because they will send you mail from the LA County. Do your Google authentication, right? The two-factor. The other thing is on Google, you can also do like a search. So whenever somebody's searching your name or searching your property or anything, it'll give you a notification, an alert saying, "Hey, someone's looking up your property, looking up your name." That way you're always in front of and in control of what is happening and what kind of information is being floated around you on the internet. If you look at this in your folders, I have this handout. It's the one with the blue square. It says fraud red flags. If you try to follow some of these steps, that will help you a lot in helping you prevent from fraud. And this is something you guys can also, the knowledge I'm giving you is the knowledge you should also be providing to your clients. The more knowledge you provide them, the better sophisticated realtor you look. So this is something that is happening nowadays. You want to be in front of them. You know, the phishing emails. You know, the other thing is like the emails that are being sent out. There used to be an email coming that looked and felt like it was First American, because we're one of the largest companies. We get targeted very quickly. Instead of like a .com, it was like .con, or like instead of first AM, it said first AN. And it's a simple little thing. And you think, oh my gosh, you know, it might be. And yesterday I got a client calling me. He says, "Angie, is this from you guys?" And I looked at him like, no, just because it says, you know, because our system's called Ignite RE, it just said Ignite. And I'm like, that's not from First American. But these are things that we have to do on a regular basis now. We have to communicate with each other and ask, hey, is this from you guys? Is this from you? Double check. And you have to communicate with all parties, because the last thing you want to do is rush through the transaction, miss something, talk to an individual that shouldn't be part of the transaction and not even know it. And then now you've been scammed. It's the last thing you want to do. So most important thing is knowledge. So first on fraud, check out the podcast. It's free. You don't sign up for it. You don't have to. It's just gaining the knowledge. We just started that because we want to bring the knowledge to the real estate industry. That way, the more people know about it, the less likely we have to deal with
Oh
a
my
lot
gosh.
more problems. Because if everybody knows about the red flags, we're all hyper alert versus not knowing. When you're not knowing, you're navigating without, with your eyes covered. So we want to open your eyes, know that this is happening. It's not to scare you, but to bring you knowledge so that you know what to look out for, what you can explain to your clients. That way, when they're going through the escrow process, they say, hey, why do I have to bring all these papers? Why do I have to sign so many documents? Well, it's because it's for everyone's
Protection.
protection.
Mhm.
We're here as a title insurance provider to protect the transaction, not to give you a headache, because we don't want to make it a headache, but we want to make sure that we're protecting all parties in a transaction. And again, Yolanda and I, we're neutral parties. All we're trying to do is close your transaction with the best possible insurance.
And protect all of you and your clients. Um, wire fraud is still on the rise. It affects everyone. Actually, my husband and I, we were victims of wire fraud. So, I mean, it happens to everybody. We were selling our property, and somewhere between the transaction coordinator from the buyer's agent and escrow, again, just one typo error, one letter or number different in the email, and the poor buyer wired her. This was just the deposit. Thank God it wasn't the down payment, but she was all excited buying her first home. She thought she was wiring to escrow the deposit to open up escrow. She wired it to a bank in New York. It was, I shouldn't say only 5,000, but it was 5,000. By the time we figured out, we're waiting for the deposit, open up escrow. And like 2 days later, by the time we found out, the bank, that account was already closed. And, we obviously, we have to notify FBI, the local law enforcement. So this was in New York. It was already too late. Now, and the sad thing is, this affects everyone. She was a first-time buyer. We liked her. We wanted her to have the home. She was tight on money. So for that transaction to go by, we spoke between us, my husband and I, and with the buyers, the selling office, we split that difference, and we ate up the cost of the 5,000 so we can proceed with the transaction. So this affects everyone. And this was, it's sad. And you have to be careful because, again, keep your emails clean, get rid of, discard. Don't click on anything that looks suspicious or just delete. If when in doubt, just delete. If it's important, they'll call you, they'll get a hold of you, but just be careful because you don't want any spam or virus and attacking and getting your information and identity. And just like a First American title, we are also doing the double authentication. As a matter of fact, they make us change our password every 90 days. When I barely start remembering it, get that notification, your password's going to change. I'm like, oh, I just memorized it.
Yeah. Same.
And we also have, the security emails, and this goes for all title companies. We never just email wire instructions. It's a phone call, it's access code email. So, I mean, we protect you and your clients always, always. So, that's our job. We just want to do our job and help you and protect you and your clients. And so, there's also flyers there. It's good reading material. And so please feel free to take extras if you like. And if you have any questions, just call Angie and I. We're here for you, and we're here to service you and protect you and look after you and your client. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time from your busy schedule to come out and chat with us today. And I
Yeah,
hope you
thank you
picked
for
up
coming.
a few ideas or good information, valuable information to help you with your next transaction.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, Joyce.
On the property? Oh, what do you mean?
So she was refinanced. I think is the question. The homeowner is refinancing her property, and then she found out during the process of the refinance and probably when the prelim that her name wasn't on title. Was it someone that she knew, or okay, so then there is fraud
It's
involved.
probably either fraud happening or the county might have made a mistake.
Exactly.
And might have recorded the wrong APN with the wrong name. So first you check with title and double
Mhm.
check we could check the chain of title
Mhm.
to make sure that, everything looks right. If in fact there was fraud, then you'll have to hire a real estate attorney to
Mhm.
unravel it all.
And sometimes because people, well, this is a whole new class Angie will do, Angie and I will do in the future. We didn't talk about uninsured deeds,
Oh, yeah.
but a lot of people do record uninsured deeds. It's not unusual,
Yeah.
but the thing about uninsured deed, it's when you record a deed, but it's done outside of title and escrow. So no one checks the validity or if it's correct as far as the assessor parcel number and the legal description. And you don't think it's much, but one digit off on the APN number or one digit off on the legal description, an 8 looks like a 3 or a 6 or a 9 or a 0, throws the whole thing off. And so it could be just that somebody, a neighbor, somebody recorded an uninsured deed, had the wrong legal or APN number and got posted to your client's chain of title. That's very fixable. I mean,
Yeah,
it
that's
depends, now if it's fraud, that's a whole different story. And yes, he or she would have to get a real estate attorney. But just FYI, so that you know, when it comes to uninsured deeds, when you open an order, whether it's a refi or a sales transaction, the title company, we have to go back to the last insured transaction. Okay, and the sales bona fide insured transaction if it's a sale. So if there's a lot of uninsured deeds, we have to clear all that up and ask for SIs and all that. So just understand that that's how the title company works. We go back to the last bona fide sales transaction. Okay, so just
There was
FYI.
another question somewhere? Yeah. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Lesser chance.
Yeah, you definitely you minimize the
lesser
chances.
chance.
I mean, it's still happen, obviously, and that's why you need title.
Yeah. It's a
If that
lesser
wasn't the
chance.
case, you wouldn't need
So-
us. Right,
Yeah,
no,
it does, yeah.
never, ever, ever.
So it lessens the chance, but at the same time, since now with AI and all the fake IDs and everything, we've had some where it looked like it was all normal and real, but we mitigate it as much as we can.
Exactly.
There's not 100%. That's why there's insurance.
Exactly, exactly.
Oh,
All right.
notaries, the RONs, remote online notary or virtual notaries? Online notaries or?
Yeah, I guess
I
Ron,
think they're talking about Ron.
Ron, yeah.
So we have our approved list that we will only
Mhm.
use for remote online notary. We also, First American has our own remote online notary team. So when the transaction is going through First American, because we're taking all the efforts of checking everything, our due diligence on it, we can offer a First American Ron to do the virtual signing. It is remote, but they do have to show, it's like a Zoom meeting. It's kind of like a Zoom, but it's not through Zoom. And we ask a lot of questions to validate that person.
Mhm.
So when we do it, we are taking the liability to make sure that we're selling and doing the transfer to the right, correct people. We don't just take any virtual signings or any type of RONs because of that reason of fraud.
I mean, correct. I mean, obviously, it kind of, Ron, that opens up, to possible more fraud, but we also have our approved notaries that we work with, and, it's a case by case. And so, yeah.
Do you guys have more questions?
Lucy, that's a good point. And that's kind of similar to what happened to my husband and I when we sold our house. But title companies will not change their wire instructions. That's kind of a red flag. Or when there's wire instructions being changed like that, that's kind of a red flag. So that was smart on the teller's behalf. And they're phishing. And so be careful on the subject line when you're sending out emails. On the subject line, don't put like down payment deposit, or don't put words that these people who are phishing the internet to, banking information. Don't put that on the subject line. No. Because that's a red flag, and that's what they're fishing for they're surfing on the internet, and that's what they look for. Then they start looking at your email, and then again, it's just changing one little digit letter. No, I mean, they're good. It's unbelievable, and it's scary. And I think it was in the billions every year of,
Oh, yeah.
it's in the
It's in the
billions now.
billions. I had it.
Yeah,
from any of
I
them.
mean, I think real.
Just to piggyback of Yolanda's point, on financial information like that, I just say, I finish your work or something like that on a subject. Don't ever put, here are the bank information you requested. Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, I finish your work.
Yeah.
Or data request.
Just
So
be, real careful.
they use AI, they use computer program to extract all this email out. So write something, hello cousin. They will never pull that information out. I'm going on vacation or something like that. Send it back to the person who asked information from you. Then they will know.
So just real fast, according to the FBI, their internet, their crime bureau investigation on real estate fraud, in 2021, they were reported 2.4 billion. This is 2021. In 2023, it jumped up to 2.9 billion. I don't have 2024.
And they're saying it's a 25% increase.
Yeah, it's insane. So that's what I'm saying. Just be careful and protect your customers and protect yourself. Oh,
You can do that.
don't put, yeah, because then they're gonna know it's
Well,
a
the subject line.
transaction.
Well,
Just
let's
be
give
real-
a warm hands welcome to our two knowledgeable speakers. On behalf of West and Gabriel Valley Board of Realtors and Education Committee, I want to present the two wonderful speakers.
Cute.
This is come here and take a picture.